Rebecca Lawson stared at the old house, the heavy key cold in her shaking hand. At 38, she'd never imagined her life would come to this, spending her last $850 on a broken-down home nobody wanted. The wind pushed her dark hair across her face as tears threatened to fall. 6 months since John's funeral, and the world had already forgotten another Vietnam veteran who'd given everything for his country. The Army's death benefits barely covered the funeral, leaving Rebecca and 10-year-old Michael with nothing but memories and nightmares. The faded white paint peeled from the wood like John's hope had peeled away during those final years fighting for his denied benefits. Behind her, the old car coughed to a stop, carrying everything she still owned in this world. "What would you think of this place, John?" she whispered to the empty air. The question hung between the branches of overgrown trees as she stepped forward. This wasn't just some desperate gamble. It was her last chance to keep her promise to John, that she'd always make sure Michael had a home. Michael climbed out of the car, his small face serious beyond his years. "Mom, is this really our house now?" His voice carried equal parts hope and doubt. "Yes, baby, it's all ours." Rebecca forced a smile. No more landlords, no more rent. But it looks scary. Michael clutched his inhaler tighter. The dust and mold would be a problem with his asthma. "It needs work," Rebecca admitted, walking toward the sagging porch. "But we can fix it up together." 3 days earlier, Rebecca had sat in the back of the county courthouse, clutching an envelope containing every dollar she had saved. The eviction notice had come the previous week, 30 days to vacate the apartment they'd called home since John's diagnosis. With her credit destroyed by medical bills, no landlord would rent to her. The tax auction was her desperate last chance. Most properties started at thousands of dollars, far beyond her reach. But then the auctioneer announced a property on Old Mill Road. Starting bid, $800. Property sold as is. Significant structural issues. Rebecca raised her hand slightly. $800, she said, her voice barely audible. The auctioneer nodded. "We have $800. Do I hear $850? A man in an expensive suit glanced up from his phone. $850, he said casually. Rebecca's heart sank. She only had $850. She couldn't go higher. $900, the auctioneer asked. The man in the suit waited, looking around the room. Rebecca stood up. "I have $850. It's everything I have. Please." The room fell silent. The auctioneer looked uncomfortable. "Sir," he asked the man in the suit, "do you want to go to $900? The man shrugged. "Pass. Too much trouble." "Sold for $850, the auctioneer announced, already moving on to the next property. Now, Rebecca turned the key in the lock. The door groaned open, releasing the smell of dust and abandonment. She flicked the light switch, but nothing happened. Of course, no electricity. She pulled out her phone and turned on the flashlight. "Stay close," she told Michael, who gripped the back of her jacket as they stepped inside. The beam of light revealed a large front room. Dust covered everything. Fallen plaster crunched beneath their feet. Old furniture remained in place like the abandoned belongings of ghosts. A sagging couch, a rocking chair, bookshelves with a few moldy books. "Mom, I don't think we can live here," Michael whispered. "Not right away," Rebecca admitted. "But we have a little time." They moved carefully from room to room. A living room, dining room, kitchen with ancient appliances. Despite the mess, Rebecca could see that the house had once been beautiful. Hardwood floors lurked under the grime. Detailed woodwork framed the doorways. "Can we check upstairs?" Michael asked, his voice echoing. Rebecca tested the first step. It creaked, but felt solid enough. The upper floor had 4 bedrooms and a bathroom with an old clawfoot tub. In one room, faded wallpaper peeled from the walls. In another, a child's drawing was still visible, protected somehow by time. Michael stepped into what must have been a child's bedroom and started coughing, his small body shaking with the effort. "Let's get outside," Rebecca said quickly, guiding him toward the stairs. Outside, she helped him use his inhaler, watching anxiously as his breathing slowly returned to normal. As the sun began to set, reality crashed down on her. They couldn't stay in the house tonight. It wasn't safe, especially with Michael's asthma. But they had nowhere else to go, and no money for a hotel. We'll sleep in the car tonight, she decided. Tomorrow we'll figure things out. They reclined the seats and used the blanket Rebecca kept in the trunk. As Michael drifted to sleep, Rebecca stared at the dark shape of their new home, tears sliding down her cheeks. Had she made a terrible mistake? Had she risked everything only to end up homeless anyway? Morning came with the sound of tires on gravel. Rebecca sat up quickly, disoriented. A pickup truck had parked beside them. A man with graying hair stepped out, carrying a thermos and a paper bag. "Morning," he called. "Thought you might need breakfast. I'm Jack Thornton. I live down the road." Rebecca got out of the car cautiously. Rebecca Lawson. "And this is my son, Michael." Michael had woken up and was watching from the car window. "We just bought this place." Jack nodded, his eyes kind. "Figured as much. Nobody's lived here since Thomas Crawford disappeared." Disappeared. Back in 1992, Thomas was a claims processor at the VA office. One day he just vanished, left everything behind: clothes, car, personal items. Police investigated but never found a trace. Jack lowered his voice. "That's why folks around here say the place is haunted." Michael had joined them, his eyes wide. "Is it really haunted?" Jack smiled at him. "I don't believe in ghosts, young man, but I do believe some houses hold on to memories." "What kind of man was Thomas Crawford?" Rebecca asked, accepting the thermos of coffee Jack offered. "A good man. Helped a lot of veterans around here navigate the benefit system. Vietnam vets especially." Jack looked at the house thoughtfully. "People said he was collecting evidence of some kind. Documentation about denied claims." Rebecca felt a strange chill. John had fought for years to get his benefits, filing appeal after appeal. Did they ever find out what happened to him? Jack shook his head. "Police didn't try very hard, if you ask me. Said he probably just left, started over somewhere else." He studied her face. "Your husband was military?" "How did you know?" "The way you stand. Military family can always spot each other." Jack hesitated. "Vietnam." Rebecca nodded. "Marine. Agent Orange exposure. He died 6 months ago." Jack's expression softened. "I'm sorry. Too many good men lost that way." He gestured toward the house. "Place needs work, but the bones are good. I'm a contractor. I could help you assess what you're dealing with." For the first time since the auction, Rebecca felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe they weren't completely alone in this after all. Over the next few days, Rebecca discovered just how enormous the task of making the house livable would be. Jack gave her the unvarnished truth after inspecting the property. "The good news is the foundation is solid. Original stone from the 1890s, built to last," he explained as they stood in what would eventually be the kitchen. "The bad news is pretty much everything else. The roof needs replacing. The electrical wiring is dangerous, plumbing is shot, and there's enough mold in here to make anyone sick, let alone a kid with asthma." Rebecca's heart sank. How much would it cost to fix all that? Jack hesitated. "Minimum $15,000, and that's with me doing the work at cost and you helping." The number hit Rebecca like a physical blow. $15,000 might as well have been $15 million. "I don't have that kind of money," she admitted. "I don't even have enough for a hotel tonight." Jack scratched his beard thoughtfully. "I've got a camping trailer you can use for now. It's not fancy, but it's clean and it's got working plumbing. We can park it on the property." "We'll pay you back somehow," Rebecca promised. "We'll figure it out," was all Jack said. Meanwhile, Michael had been exploring the overgrown property, keeping a safe distance from the house. He discovered an old well with a stone surround and the remains of what must have been a large garden. "Mom!" Michael called excitedly as he ran back to the house. "There's apple trees back there, and a weird stone circle thing by the big oak tree." That evening, as Rebecca and Michael settled into the borrowed trailer, she tried to maintain a positive attitude for her son's sake. "It's like camping, right? An adventure." Michael was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Why did you buy this place, Mom?" "Really?" Rebecca considered how to answer. "Because I was desperate," she finally admitted. "Because I was about to lose everything, and sometimes when you're at the very bottom, you have to take a crazy chance." She looked at him seriously. "I'm sorry if I made the wrong choice." "You didn't," Michael said with surprising conviction. "This place feels, I don't know, important somehow, like we're supposed to be here." That night, after Michael was asleep, Rebecca sat outside the trailer on a folding chair, staring at the dark shape of the house. The nearly full moon cast enough light to see its outline against the night sky. As she watched, she could have sworn she saw a faint light move past one of the upstairs windows, as if someone carrying a candle had walked by. Rebecca rubbed her eyes. She was exhausted, and her mind was playing tricks on her. Yet, as she stared at the window, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was looking back. The following days established a routine. Rebecca would work her morning shift at the local diner, then spend the afternoon trying to clean the house enough to make it minimally habitable. Michael would go to school, then join her afterward, wearing a dust mask to protect his lungs. Jack dropped by most days after his own work was done, tackling the most dangerous structural issues. One evening, as Rebecca was cleaning what would eventually be Michael's bedroom, she noticed that one floorboard moved slightly when she stepped on it. Curious, she knelt down to examine it. The board was loose, and when she pried it up with a screwdriver, she found a small space underneath. Heart pounding, she shone her flashlight into the cavity. There was something there, a metal box about the size of a thick hardcover book. She carefully lifted it out. The box was old, its surface tarnished but still solid. There was no lock, just a simple latch. Rebecca hesitated, feeling like she was intruding on someone's private space. But this was her house now, and whatever secrets it held belonged to her too. She opened the box. Inside, protected from the elements that had damaged so much of the house, were 3 items: a leather-bound journal, a small stack of photographs, and a set of keys. Rebecca lifted out the journal first. The cover was soft with age and use, the pages slightly yellowed at the edges. Opening to the first page, she read, "Property of Thomas Crawford, 1990. This was Thomas's personal journal. Rebecca's hands trembled slightly as she carefully turned the pages. The handwriting was neat and precise, detailing Thomas's thoughts and experiences as a VA claims processor. The early entries described his pride in helping veterans navigate the complex benefits system. But as she read further, the tone changed. Thomas wrote about discovering troubling patterns: Vietnam veterans with Agent Orange exposure having their claims systematically denied despite clear evidence of service-connected conditions. Found another rejection today that made no sense. One entry from October 1991 read, "James Merritt, Marine, confirmed service in areas sprayed with Agent Orange, now suffering from diabetes and peripheral neuropathy. Textbook case. Denial letter cited insufficient evidence despite complete documentation. This is the 12th such case this month. Not coincidence. Something's wrong." Rebecca felt a chill. John had received similar rejection letters containing the same phrases, citing the same supposed lack of evidence despite his detailed service records. She looked through the photographs next. Many showed Thomas, a thin man with kind eyes and a serious expression, posing with older men. Veterans, Rebecca realized. In one photo, she noticed a familiar face and gasped. "John?" Her husband's younger face smiled back at her from the photo. He stood next to Thomas and several other men in front of the local VFW hall. Rebecca turned the photo over. Written on the back, "Agent Orange Support Group, 1991. John had never mentioned knowing Thomas Crawford. But then again, there were many things John hadn't talked about from those years when he was fighting the system. The final entries in the journal took a darker turn. Thomas wrote about someone he referred to only as WP, who had been monitoring his activities. "WP called me to his office today." One entry from March 1992 read, "Says he's noticed my unusual interest in certain denied claims. Suggested I focus on processing new applications rather than questioning past decisions. Not subtle. He knows I'm collecting evidence." The very last entry, dated April 15, 1992, was brief and chilling. "Someone was in my house last night while I was asleep. Nothing missing, but papers were moved. I'm moving everything important to a safer location tonight. If anything happens to me, the truth is in the well where only the right person will find it. WP will never bury this evidence like he buried these veterans' claims." After that, nothing. The remaining pages were blank. Rebecca sat on the dusty floor, holding the journal, a chill running down her spine despite the warm evening. Thomas had feared for his safety, had hidden evidence of wrongdoing, and then had disappeared. This wasn't just an abandoned house Rebecca had purchased, it was a crime scene. And somewhere on the property, Thomas Crawford had hidden evidence that might explain what had happened to him, and why so many veterans like John had been denied the benefits they deserved. If you're enjoying this story, please take a moment to like and subscribe. It costs nothing but means everything to support stories like Rebecca's journey for justice. Your support helps us bring more of these emotional stories to light. Rebecca couldn't sleep that night. The journal, the photos, and especially Thomas's final ominous entry kept replaying in her mind. She had so many questions. Who was WP? What exactly had Thomas discovered? And most importantly, what had happened to him? In the morning, Rebecca showed Jack the journal and explained what she'd learned about Thomas and his suspicions about denied veterans' claims. Jack listened without interrupting, his expression growing increasingly serious. "I knew Thomas," he finally said when Rebecca finished. "Not well, but I did some work on this house for him about a year before he disappeared. He helped my brother with his benefits claim when nobody else could make sense of the paperwork. My husband was in that support group with him." Rebecca pointed to the photo. "But he never mentioned Thomas, at least not to me." "A lot of those guys didn't talk much about what they were going through," Jack said. "Too painful." Rebecca looked down at the journal again. Thomas mentioned evidence hidden in the well. Michael found an old well on the property yesterday. "Let's take a look," Jack suggested. They found Michael already outside exploring. "Mom, can I help? Please," he begged when he saw them heading toward the well. "Sure, but stay back a bit in case anything's unstable," Rebecca cautioned. The stone well stood about 30 yards behind the house, partially hidden by overgrown bushes. Its stone rim rose about 3 feet from the ground, with an old wooden cover placed over the top. Jack carefully removed the cover. "I'll go down and check," he offered, pulling a flashlight from his pocket. "Is it safe?" Rebecca asked anxiously. "It's not that deep, and I can see there's a stone ledge about 8 feet down," Jack reassured her. Using a rope from his truck, Jack lowered himself into the well. Rebecca and Michael watched nervously from above. "There's something here," Jack called up after a minute. Some kind of metal box wedged between the stones. He passed up a waterproof container about the size of a shoebox, then climbed back out of the well. Rebecca's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside, protected by layers of plastic, was a waterproof case containing a cassette tape labeled Evidence, a thick folder of documents, and a letter dated April 17, 1992, 2 days after Thomas's last journal entry. The letter read, "To whoever finds this, if you're reading this, I fear the worst has happened. Warren Phillips, Regional Director of VA Benefits, has systematically denied valid claims from Vietnam veterans exposed to Agent Orange. The enclosed documents and tape contain proof of his actions and the names of over 200 affected veterans. Phillips threatened me when he realized I was collecting this evidence. If I disappear, do not trust the local authorities. Phillips has influence everywhere. Take this to someone who can help. Thomas Crawford." The documents included copies of denied claims with Thomas's handwritten notes pointing out contradictions and procedural violations, internal memos showing how certain claims were flagged for automatic denial, and most damning, a statistical analysis showing that claims mentioning Agent Orange were denied at 3 times the rate of other claims. "John's name is on this list," Rebecca said quietly, pointing to a page. "He fought for 7 years to get his benefits. They were finally approved 6 months before he died." "We need to find a way to listen to that tape," Jack said. They used an old boombox in Jack's truck to play the cassette. Thomas Crawford's voice filled the cab, steady and determined. "This is Thomas Crawford, VA Claims Processor, Region 5. Date is April 16, 1992. I'm recording this as evidence of systematic wrongdoing in the processing of Vietnam veterans' Agent Orange claims. The tape continued with Thomas detailing specific cases, naming Warren Phillips as the architect of the denial policy, and explaining how Phillips had been promoted based on his ability to clear backlogs, which he accomplished by rubber-stamping denials. Most shocking was a recorded conversation between Thomas and Phillips. Phillips' voice was cold and controlled. "You're making problems where there don't need to be any, Crawford. These claims are expensive. The system would collapse if we approved every Vietnam vet who claims Agent Orange exposure." "These men served their country," Thomas responded. "They're sick because of that service. They deserve their benefits." "That's not your call to make," Phillips snapped. "Keep pushing this and you'll regret it. Everyone has weaknesses, Crawford. Everyone has something to lose." After the tape ended, they sat in stunned silence. "That's a threat," Rebecca finally said, and days later, Thomas disappeared. "Warren Phillips is still around," Jack said grimly. "He's not just regional director anymore. He's the deputy undersecretary for the entire VA Benefits Administration. Powerful man with friends in Washington." "What should we do?" Rebecca asked. "We need to be careful," Jack warned. "If Phillips is behind Thomas's disappearance, he wouldn't hesitate to silence anyone else who threatened to expose him." They agreed to contact a reporter Jack knew at the county newspaper, someone they could trust to understand the significance of what they'd found. The next morning, Rebecca received an unexpected visitor. A sleek government car pulled up beside the trailer. A man in an expensive suit stepped out, his silver hair perfectly styled, his smile practiced and cold. "Ms. Lawson, Warren Phillips, Department of Veterans Affairs." He held out his hand, which Rebecca reluctantly shook. "I understand you've recently purchased this property." Rebecca's heart hammered in her chest. How did he know? How did he find her so quickly? "Yes, at the county auction," she managed to reply, keeping her voice steady. "I won't waste your time," Phillips said smoothly. "The VA has a historical interest in this property. There may be some sensitive documents that belong to a former employee. We'd like to make you an offer to purchase the house and land. $50,000, cash, as is." The amount was staggering, enough to solve all of Rebecca's financial problems and then some. But the timing and Phillips' appearance made it clear what this was really about. "I'm not interested in selling," Rebecca said firmly. Phillips' smile didn't waver, but his eyes hardened. "I understand you're a widow. Your husband was John Lawson, correct? Vietnam veteran, Marine Corps?" Rebecca felt a chill at his knowledge of her personal details. John's case was unfortunate. So much paperwork, so many delays. The system failed him, as it fails too many of our veterans. Phillips shook his head in false sympathy. "I'd hate to see his widow and son struggling unnecessarily when I could help." "By buying our home?" Rebecca asked. "By resolving certain complications. Property ownership can be complex. Tax issues arise. Permits for renovation become problematic." His voice remained pleasant, but the threat was clear. "Think about it. $75,000, final offer, for your son's sake." He handed her a business card. "Call me when you've reconsidered." As Phillips drove away, Jack's truck pulled in. He had seen the government car and hurried over. "That was him, wasn't it?" Jack asked, his face grim. "Phillips." Rebecca nodded, still shaken. "He offered to buy the house. $75,000. "He's scared," Jack said. "He knows we found something." "He mentioned John by name. He knows everything about us." Rebecca's voice trembled. "What are we going to do?" Jack put a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We're going to fight back. My friend at the newspaper is meeting us in an hour, and I've called some of the guys from the VFW. They deserve to know what Thomas found." For the first time since John died, Rebecca felt a sense of purpose stronger than her fear. This wasn't just about a house anymore. It wasn't even about justice for Thomas Crawford. It was about all the veterans like John who had suffered while fighting a system designed to deny them. "Let's make sure these men get the recognition they deserve," she said, clutching Thomas's evidence to her chest, "even if it's too late for some of them." The meeting at the local diner brought together 12 Vietnam veterans, all of whom had struggled with denied Agent Orange claims. Some had eventually received benefits, others were still fighting. All recognized their names on Thomas's list. Sarah Chen, the newspaper reporter, listened intently as Rebecca and Jack shared their discoveries. The veterans added their own stories, anger and pain etched into their weathered faces. "This isn't just a local paper story," Sarah finally said. "This is national news. I have a contact at the Washington Post who specializes in veterans affairs." 3 days later, Phillips returned, this time with 2 men in dark suits. "Ms. Lawson, I'm disappointed you haven't called," Phillips said, his friendly facade gone. "I understand you've been talking to people about this property, about things that don't concern you." "Actually, they do concern me," Rebecca replied, standing straighter than she had in months. She wasn't alone this time. Jack stood beside her, along with 5 veterans from the VFW. These men deserve answers. They deserve justice. "You have no idea what you're getting involved in," Phillips warned. "I'm trying to be reasonable. $100,000. Last chance." One of the veterans stepped forward, Bill Harmon, his medals proudly displayed on his VFW cap. "We've already sent everything to Washington, Phillips. Thomas Crawford's evidence, the tape recordings, our testimonials. It's over." Phillips' face hardened. "You'll regret this," he said quietly, turning back toward his car. "One more thing," Rebecca called after him. "We contacted the police about reopening Thomas Crawford's missing person case. They're searching the property tomorrow with cadaver dogs." Phillips stopped walking but didn't turn around. His shoulders tensed visibly before he continued to his car. The 3 men drove away without another word. The next morning's Washington Post headline read, "Systematic Denial: How Vietnam Veterans Were Cheated Out of Agent Orange Benefits." The article detailed Thomas Crawford's evidence, the statistical analysis of denied claims, and included quotes from veterans affected by the policy. Phillips was named as the architect of the denials. By noon, 3 news vans had arrived at the property. By evening, the story was on national television. 1 week later, Rebecca sat in the office of the VA Inspector General in Washington, D.C., Michael beside her, Jack, and several veterans in the chairs around them. She placed Thomas's evidence box on the desk. "We believe Warren Phillips was responsible for Thomas Crawford's disappearance," she stated simply, "and we have reason to believe Thomas's remains may be on the property I now own." The Inspector General, a stern woman with compassionate eyes, nodded. "Mr. Phillips has been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. I've already dispatched a team to coordinate with local authorities on a thorough search of your property." 2 days later, they found human remains buried in the old apple orchard. Dental records confirmed it was Thomas Crawford. Warren Phillips was arrested for murder. The investigation uncovered a broader conspiracy. 5 VA officials had participated in the systematic denial of Agent Orange claims, saving the government millions while veterans suffered and died without the benefits they had earned. 3 months later, Rebecca stood on the front porch of her house, now with a new roof, repaired windows, and fresh white paint. The renovation had been funded through a special congressional appropriation for the Crawford House, now designated as a memorial and resource center for Vietnam veterans fighting for benefits. Michael sat on the porch swing, healthy color in his cheeks. The mold had been removed, the house thoroughly cleaned. It was home now. Jack came around the corner carrying the last of the new kitchen cabinets. His friendship with Rebecca had grown into something deeper over the shared months of struggle and triumph. "The veterans will be here at noon for the dedication," he reminded her. "Are you ready?" Rebecca nodded, looking out at the property. The overgrown land had been cleared, revealing Thomas's carefully planned gardens. They'd found his gardening journal and restored the plantings according to his design. A memorial stone for Thomas now stood near the well where he had hidden the truth. "I've been thinking about what to say," Rebecca admitted. "How do you thank someone you never met for changing your life?" "Thomas would be proud," Jack said. "You finished what he started." A car pulled into the driveway. Bill Harmon and his wife, the first of the day's guests. Behind them, a line of cars stretched down the road. veterans coming to honor one of their advocates and celebrate a victory in their long fight for recognition. As Rebecca welcomed them, Michael called from the porch, "Mom, look what I found." He held up a small box discovered while helping Jack with the final repairs. Inside was a Purple Heart medal and a handwritten note from Thomas, "To return to John Lawson when his claim is approved." Rebecca held the medal tightly, tears flowing freely. "He kept fighting for you, John," she whispered, "and so did I." That night, after the celebration ended and the house finally fell quiet, Rebecca stood in the moonlight looking up at her home. The windows glowed warmly against the night sky. No more ghosts, no more secrets, just peace and purpose born from the courage of those who refused to let the truth remain buried. What had started as her last desperate gamble had become her greatest blessing. She had spent her last $850 on an abandoned house nobody wanted, only to discover that sometimes the things others discard hold the greatest value. Not in money, but in truth, justice, and the power to heal wounds long left open. Inside, Michael and Jack waited for her, the family she never expected to find. Rebecca smiled and turned toward home, ready at last to step fully into the future that her last $850 had made possible. Please do comment your feedback and subscribe to our channel for more unexpected stories. Remember, it's never too late to change your story.